Bryan Rust had the best season of his career this year, and Pat and I are going to do our season in review for him right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Send for Wet, and you can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And yes, people, I am finally back hosting. You guys don't have to deal with Pat hosting anymore after 3 days in a row. So he'll go next week a little bit, but my voice is finally back to normal after how hoarse it sounded yesterday. It was absolutely terrible. Apologize for not talking as much during yesterday's show, but it is miles better today. And with that, let's dive into our fourth season in review. We've done the captain, Pat. We've done the two assistants. Now let's get into someone who probably should have a full-time letter on his sweater, considering how much of a leader he has been in the locker room for the last several years. We both think Bryan Rust should have an A on his letter, and we are going to be doing his season in review today. He had 31 goals, 65 points in 71 games this year. His 31 goals are a career high in goals. His 34 assists are tied for a career high in assists, and then his points, 65, those are a career high. He was absolutely tremendous this year for the Penguins. I know when you look at some of his underlyings, shot attempts, goals for, even expected goals, scoring chances on an individual basis, he's below 50%. But I'm throwing those a little bit out the window just because he was getting all the tough matchups with Sidney Crosby and Rickard Rakell, and they were also just out there for a lot of goals against, just because this team was horrendous defensively. But when you look at his numbers with that line, not just his individual numbers, but when you look at his numbers with the line, it's really good. They played 69 games together, 619 minutes. When that trio was on the ice, Crosby, Rust, and Rakell, the Penguins had 51% of the shot attempts. They had 51% of the expected goals. They also had 54% of the high danger chances. Very good numbers from that top line. Again, those numbers, when the three of them together, were very good. Rust's individual numbers were a bit lower, but he also at times played on Evgeny Malkin's wing. He sometimes played on the third line this season. So I take a little bit of those numbers with a little bit of grain of salt just because of how good of a year he had. But he continues to be part of the engine of this team, and you saw that on display every single night. He carried the Penguins into the fight during so many games this season. And for me, man, I'm not going to talk that much longer, but he gets an A+. He was fantastic this season. And if they really wanted to, they could move Bryan Rust this offseason. His NMC expires, and they could get quite a haul for him. A two-time Cup champion, veteran leader, just had the best season of his career. Yeah, I know he's a bit older now, but GMs pay out the ass for these types of players. You would get a first plus for him if you really wanted to dangle him. I don't think the Penguins are going to do that, and me personally, I don't think they should, but I think if they really wanted to, they could get a fairly big haul for Bryan Rust. So just wanted to end with that. Pat, your thoughts on the season that was for Bryan Rust?
They absolutely could get a haul for him, but they shouldn't do it. And I know that kind of antithetical to what they want to do, but there's so many strings that have to be connected here when it comes to Bryan Rust. One, I know not holding on to him is antithetical to what they want to do, but it comes back to, first, the big rant that everybody jumped down my throat about when it comes to tanking. You got to have guys who know how to win, guys who have won, guys who are good characters to keep your culture from spiraling into something toxic. It's really hard to get out of. It also just feels like you also have to talk about the personal of it. Bryan Rust appears to be very comfortable in Pittsburgh as a Penguin, living here, starting a life here. He became a full-fledged adult here. So he's very comfortable in the Penguins organization and in Pittsburgh. And there is something to be said for organizations that treat people right. obviously you can talk about how successful the Vegas Golden Knights have been, how good they've been, everything they've done, but there's a little bit of a ruthlessness there. There's guys will still go there right now because they're still one of the best teams in the league, but at some point the bill will come due for Vegas, and they'll struggle to get certain players because they know that just because they signed you in July doesn't mean that you're going to be on the team next July. And I get that sports are supposed to be all about winning, but there's so many factors that contribute to winning. The other thing with Bryan Rust is again, bringing it back to the rebuild and tanking and all of that. He is one of a handful of guys that I continue to put up there as somebody who provides a lot of value to those younger players. Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby. Evgeny Malkin is Evgeny Malkin. Chris Letang is Chris Letang. They are transcendent superstars. You hear all the time from young players, not just coming into the Penguins organization, but the league as a whole, that say, I grew up watching this guy. This guy was my hero. I modeled my game after him. And you can get easily starstruck by guys like that. But a Bryan Rust, who little to no fanfare when he gets drafted, wasn't really much of a celebration when he gets called up, and he's had to work for everything, and he's earned everything that he's gotten. And learning from that guy, yeah, Sidney Crosby is going to set the standard. The core is going to set the standard for what the organization expects of you. But when you sit next to a guy like Bryan Rust in the locker room, on the bench, on the plane, at team dinner, and you look at this guy and go, he's earned everything he's got because he's worked his ass off to get it. And finally, this is from a personal standpoint, he's just a great dude. He works hard. He's honest. He will come out and say what needs to be said. He will do the things that sometimes you don't want your superstars to do. He will mix it up with other players. He will get into scrums and dirty little areas that I know that Crosby, Malkin, and Letang have zero fear, but you don't want them in that situation. You want other guys to step up for that because you want those guys to produce for you. You don't want them fighting battles to the point where it could lead to injury. But at the end of the day, just an absolutely great example of how good of a job throughout the last decade or so this team has done in developing players throughout their system. So A+ for me from Bryan Rust, an amazing season. And I think he should remain a Penguin until he doesn't want to be a Penguin anymore.
He shows what it means to be a Penguin on an every night basis. And he has said multiple times to the media, like, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be here when this team gets good again. And he's talked about his individual accomplishments this year. Like, yeah, he said, like, it's great, but I still want to see the team win. Like, he wants to be here when they get good again because, you know, he's won the championships. He's learned from Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang. He wants to pass that to the next generation, and he wants to really help this team get back to contention at some point here down the line. And the best thing is about Bryan Rust, man, you know, gets into the league, for the first time in 2014-15. This guy was a 3rd round pick in 2010. Awesome stuff, by the way, from Ray Shero for that pick. Thank you very much, Ray, for that. And you're right. He worked his butt off year after year to get to where he is now. And we're at a point where he's played almost 700 games in the NHL. For a 3rd round pick, that is awesome, man. 638 to be exact. He has 203 goals, 437 points in those games. If he has a year next year, just like he did this year, which, you know, we'll have to see. This is very much a career high for him. He would get 500 points. So he is 63 points, away from hitting 500 points for his career. That's going to be an even more incredible accomplishment, especially considering that he was a 3rd round pick. Again, man, thank you very much to Ray Shero for that pick. And we said it a couple weeks ago when we discussed Ray and his passing. He did such a good job during those early 2010 years with his drafting and the way that he was able to set up the Penguins for future success with some of those players that he drafted.
Yeah, I don't want to speak ill of Ray Shero, and I'm not going to.
We never know. We won't.
The thing I'm going to say about it is he had some whiffs in the early rounds, first and second round, but you go and look at his third, fourth, and fifth rounds, he drafted a lot of gems in those late
100%.
rounds. He was really good at identifying guys in the late rounds who turned out to be really key contributors and becoming full-time NHLers. So deserves all the props for that. One last thing and it's related to Bryan Rust, but it's more of a full NHL kind of idea I've hinted at it before on the show. I do think we are entering an era where we're going to have to rethink aging curves in the NHL, because Bryan Rust turned 32 this season. Well, he's going to turn 33 this in about a couple weeks here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't expect him to hit career highs again, but this idea that we've all had in our heads that, oh, once guys get on the other side of 30, they're essentially done. Do they decline? Absolutely. They're not what they were in their 20s, especially in an intensely physical sport like hockey. But with the way we have developed training, recovery, everything else in sports science, guys are able to play until they're 35, 40. And while when they get into their 30s, yes, they decline. They're not the same as they were in their 20s. But this idea that all of a sudden, as soon as your age crosses the number 30, you're suddenly becoming a depreciating asset, while still true, there are still plenty of players who are extending their careers to age 35. And I don't know if Bryan Rust can have another 65-point season next year, but I don't expect him to suddenly fall off of a cliff. I don't expect him to put up 20 points and 5 goals and 15 assists or something. But obviously he's not the big names, but I do think that he still could have a few good years left in him, barring any sort of injury or anything else. So this idea that, oh, he's going to be 33 when next season starts, he's cooked, get rid of him. He has earned a chance to continue his career as a Penguin and be a key contributor with the Penguins.
100% on that. I don't know if he's going to be a 65-point player next season, since he'll be another year older. And again, this was a career high for him in goals and it was in points, but he certainly can have an opportunity. Again, he's only 63 points away from hitting 500. He's going to hit that at some point over the next couple of years, considering how he has produced throughout his career. But still, maybe somewhere in the range of a 50-point season, 50 to 55 points next year, would totally take that as well. So Bryan Rust for both of us, A+, 100%. Another great year from him. And that wraps up our season in review for Bryan Rust. Coming up in the second segment, Wilkes-Barre is starting Sergei Murasho in their biggest game of this season tonight against Lehigh Valley, facing elimination. Pat and I are going to dive into that coming up here in the second segment. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and even Fortnite as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6/6E and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. And with 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and so much more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easy to travel with, allowing you to take your games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Amazon Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. So, Pat, it is do or die tonight for Wilkes-Barre. They faced elimination against Lehigh Valley after getting embarrassed on their home rink earlier this week. Tristan Brose, we talked about the comments during our episode earlier this week. that he just called it effing embarrassing. He was not thrilled with the way they played. And according to Tony Androkidis and Dan Kongursky was actually at the Wilkes-Barre Scranton morning skate this morning. Wilkes-Barre Scranton head coach Kirk McDonald has confirmed that Sergei Murasho will get the start in Wilkes-Barre's biggest game of the season. And heck, Pat, this is Murashev's biggest start of his career to date. He's been great for Wheeling. I know the playoffs haven't gone as he thought they would with the numbers, but he is going to start in the biggest game of his life tonight with Wilkes-Barre facing elimination. McDonald also told Kongursky that Rutger McGroarty could return next week if Wilkes-Barre gets through Lehigh Valley here. So if they can stave off elimination tonight and then win game 3 and get to the next round of the playoffs, Rutger McGroarty is going to be back healthy, and that would be so crucial, obviously, for Wilkes-Barre with the way that he was playing down the stretch, the way that he was playing for the main squad for the NHL's Pittsburgh Penguins. They need to find whatever it takes to get through Lehigh Valley here, because I really feel like they could go on a special run if they can get McGroarty back. But I'm really excited to see what Murashov can do with a little bit more pressure now.
Yeah, this is do or die time, like you said, and we're going to see what Sergei Murashov is made of. Now, we've brought it up on the show. I don't want to put too much of Wheeling's 0-3 hole on Sergei Murashov. You score 1 goal in 3 games. It's really difficult to blame the goaltender. And when you look at both or all 3 of Wheeling's games, game 3 was a pretty putrid effort, all things considered. But games 1 and 2, Murashov got beat by a bunch of fluky shots or a bunch of redirections, or there was one, I think it was game 1, a puck hits the post, hits them in the back and ricochets in. I mean, that's an EA Sports NHL glitch goal right there. There's nothing you can do if you're Sergei Murashov. But now this is prove it time, because this is also, in my estimation, and pure speculation here, I don't have any sources within the Penguins organization telling me this, but this is a business decision by the organization. They're looking at the odds. All Wilkes-Barre has to do is win tonight, and then suddenly they're in a 1-game playoff to move on to the next round. Wheeling needs a miracle. Wheeling's down 0-3. They have to reverse sweep a team that they've only been able to get 1 goal against. So they said, you know what? We're sending our top goaltending prospect to the team that has a better chance to go on a run. There's obviously also injury concerns as well, but realistically, I would believe if they thought Wheeling still had an outside chance to win the series, they probably would have kept him there and said, listen, it's your net. Guide this team. We'll cut our losses with Wilkes-Barre. We're not too upset because of injuries or whatever. It happens. So you got to do this here. Now they're like, this is a special team that could go on a run. So let's put the guy in net who can give us a better chance to win. The other thing I wanted to kind of address, because I saw some people talking about this, Androkidis also had this report that the baby Penguins didn't really respond to Alex Bump's comments about calling the defenseman of Wilkes-Barre soft. I know people want it to be borderline WWE stuff where they cut a promo on you, you come out and cut a promo back. But here's the problem. They're facing elimination tonight. This isn't just a weekend series against Lehigh Valley in February where you lose on Friday, you got the rematch Saturday, and you can come out and respond to it. You don't want to come out and talk all kinds of crap about how, oh, we're going to show him and we're going to show them what we're made of and we're going to do this, that, and the other. And then you go out and lose. And not that it would be that big of a deal, because at the end of the day, it's just words, and actions and performances matter more. But this is, again, bringing it all back to development, part of becoming a pro, because they gave you bulletin board material, and bulletin board material is meant to be used internally. I have no doubt those guys have that tacked up on the wall in Lehigh Valley's visitors' dressing room, saying this is what they think of you after 1 game. Go out and prove them wrong.
They better.
The goal there is to go out there and do it with your actions, not to talk to Androkidis and say, this guy's a bum. We don't like him. He's talking out of his ass. We're going to show him. You have to show it through your actions. And the fact that the only response realistically from both Sebastian Aho as well as Jack St. Ivany was, we'll be ready for game 2. That's a lot colder than going out there and saying, we don't like this guy, we hurt him, and we're going to show him.
Pat, why can't we just get like a stone cold Steve Austin or something like that? Pat almost just, I think he just pulled his drink when I said that, by the way.
Oh, that was solid. But at the end of the day, I mean, I feel bad for Wheeling. Our listeners know I worked there for 2.5 seasons. It holds an incredibly special place in my heart. But this is also a conversation that I had to have with a lot of season ticket holders and fans up there is, listen, guys, I know it sucks. And I know that you deserve a team that's going to go on a deep run and bring you these incredible memories. But ECHL and the AHL are developmental leagues. And these guys, while there are plenty, including their head coach, Derek Army, who is an absolute legend there and returned to coach Wheeling after being a legendary player there, these guys have dreams of going to the National Hockey League. They have dreams of going to the next level, and they're going to do everything in their power to get there. And unfortunately, when you're a really good player in the ECHL, the AHL eventually comes calling. And then the same thing happens in the AHL. If you're a really good player in the AHL, the NHL comes calling.
100%. We'll be watching Wilkes-Barre to see if they can stave off elimination and send this series back to Wilkes-Barre, or else, well, we'll be talking about Wilkes-Barre season coming to an end for a second straight year against Lehigh Valley. And to your point about Murasho, Pat, like, I agree. If they didn't think that about Murasho with this, they would have just started Taylor Gauthier. But he's going to be backing Murasho up. And again, excited to see if he can answer the call tonight with Wilkes-Barre season on the line. And I better see a much better effort than what we saw in game 1, because again, a lot of that was a very sorry effort by the Baby Pens. But that'll do it for this second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to discuss more about the Stanley Cup playoffs, some surprises, some non-surprises, all that good stuff coming up here to end the show. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our second sponsor, and that is Game Time. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it is unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it is next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off. Here's what I love about Game Time. Last-minute deals, save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They're all in pricing, shows the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout, and the app even shows you panoramic seat views so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dampin. Yes, people, we were hoping to get Jesse on today, but he had a small little procedure that he had to have done. He texted us today saying that he hopes Monday will be good. So even though Mondays usually don't work for him, we're hoping that we do get a Marshall Monday, this upcoming Monday, to talk about the draft, offseason, all that good stuff with Jesse Marshall. But let's get into some talk regarding the Stanley Cup playoffs. These will be very miscellaneous thoughts. I'll be jumping from series to series with Pat to really discuss what we've seen so far. And honestly, I am stunned that the Stars are up 2-1 right now, despite leading for what feels like 15 seconds against the Colorado Avalanche. But Pete DeBoer has those guys playing their tails off every single night. The way they have defended against Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon has been tremendous so far. I loved seeing Gabe Landeskog come back in Game 3. He got one heck of an ovation. He played very well in that game. I'm excited to see what he can do in Game 4. But they're also buying time, the Stars that is, for Heiskanen to come back and hopefully Robertson to come back a bit later on in that series, if not potentially in the second round. I think Heiskanen, is a bit closer to returning than Robertson is. But they are playing their butts off. Jake Ottinger has been awesome in net. And even though the right side of their defense is not good, they're still doing everything they can to defend against Colorado's high-end talent. So I'm very impressed with what Dallas has been able to do. Also, super impressed about Florida, Pat. I think they're kind of telling everyone, hey, don't forget about us. Like, I picked the Lightning in 7 just because I didn't like the way the Panthers are playing down the stretch. I wasn't sure if Tkachuk was going to be fully ready for this series, but the Panthers are putting on a defensive clinic against the Lightning so far. Yeah, Jake Gensel scored in game 1, and we all know how great he is in the playoffs or his career, but they're doing a great job on Kucherov, a great job on Braden Point. They're making Vasilevsky even look human, even though he's had one of the best seasons of his career this year, but they're playing so well defensively in their own end. Sergei Bobrovsky has been great, and they're bullying the Lightning in this series so far. The biggest question, obviously, is Alexander Barkov. I do not like that hit by Brandon Hagel. I think he should be suspended for it, in my opinion. I'm actually surprised that the National Department of Player Safety said that there was going to be a hearing. I thought it was just going to be a $5,000 fine, but it looks like they are very much considering suspending him for at least a game, which I am in favor of. Barkov did not even have the puck there. There's no reason to make that hit. And again, it was just a dirty hit, and I hope that he's able to play in this series because the Panthers have been dominant so far against the Lightning. So those are just two of my thoughts on those two series, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be impressed with Dallas. I said it when we made our picks. I thought the injuries were going to be too much for them to overcome, and they have played an extremely disciplined game. And it also shows you how fickle NHL playoff hockey can be, because 2 of the 3 games have gone to overtime. And I want to say it was Greg Wyshynski said it on the sheet with Jeff Merrick. The biggest thing that teams worry about when you go to overtime against Colorado is how long can you hold off Nathan MacKinnon from ending it? And they have been able to hold off Nathan MacKinnon from ending it, which is impressive. The other thing, and this is more just an overall thought of the playoffs so far, we have 5 series where there are teams who have yet to win a game, and really only one of them feels like it's a stranglehold, and that's Toronto up 3-0 over Ottawa. And even with that one, it's more just because Toronto got the 3rd win. 3-0, we've been talking about it. If you know playoff hockey, you know about it. It's incredibly difficult to come back from. But even in that series, Ottawa has hung around. Ottawa has given a good fight. But it comes back to what I've said about that series. Ottawa's not going to lose this series because they're a bad team. They're probably going to lose it because they're a young team on the way up. And most times you need that learning experience. You need to get smacked in the mouth to learn that the NHL playoffs are a whole different animal. And you can see that they're learning that. But
remember the Penguins against the Senators, Pat? They got smacked around in that series. They came back the next year, smacked everyone else around before obviously losing to the Red Wings, because that's one of the best teams I've ever seen, by the way, play live. But still, Penguins got smacked around that first year in the playoffs in the Crosby era. They come back, they use that experience to help them. So
the other thing that I want to talk about a little bit real quick is Winnipeg St. Louis. Obviously, Winnipeg gets boat raced last night, but everyone is already rushing to make their posts and make their takes about, oh, here comes playoff Connor Hellebuck. Go back and watch that first period before he gets yanked. He got no help whatsoever. I know that he's the best goalie and that everybody wants to make the playoff takes about him melting down, but I don't care if you are Dominic Hasek mixed with Patrick Waugh and Andre Vasilevsky and some hybrid super goalie. Even they ain't going to win that game with the effort that Winnipeg put out. That is the skaters failing the goaltender. I know it sucks because it's him in his track record, but I'm not putting that loss on Connor Hellebuck. Last thing, man, it just feels like it's finally going to happen for the LA Kings. Granted, it's 2-0. That's only halfway there, but they are choking the life out of Edmonton. And that is similar to what you were saying about Dallas against Colorado. They are, McKinnon and Draisaitl have had their moments, but outside of that, LA is just a boa constrictor against Edmonton right now. They're like, you know what? We know these two are going to get their cookies. We're going to force everyone else on Edmonton to beat us. And it's showing that Edmonton this year might not have the horses to do it.
I have one of my really good friends is a big Oilers fan. Matt, if you're listening to this, I apologize, buddy. And he just can't believe what he's watching every night. And it's really just been Connor McDavid trying to pull the Oilers back into the series. Leon Draisaitl obviously is still very much there. I still think he needs to be a little bit better in this series. Bouchard has not really been that good through 2 games. They need more from Hyman. They need more from Nugent Hopkins. And they also need more from their goalie. Stuart Skinner was awful in those 2 games. they're going to Cal Pickard, which, okay, sure, why not? But the Kings, they're defending really well. Their man-on-man defense is very good, and they're unbeatable at home. The Oilers need a lot more than just Connor McDavid to step up. They're putting Draisaitl with him to start game 3, which, I mean, they were putting Leon with him about 6-7 minutes into game 1. Honestly, they love putting those two on separate lines, but when you're down like this in a series, they kind of have no choice but to put those two together. So, like, that's something that they're going to have to do. A couple other series that you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, Toronto, we can make the memes about them. Their playoff experience has been a lot of losses, but they're using those experiences to really beat the Senators here. And I feel like the Senators have been a bit spooked at times in this series. It feels like they haven't been ready for this, but they've still been right there in these last 2 games. They're just not getting the bounces to go their way in overtime. I will say, I'm also surprised that Minnesota is up 2-1 right now on Vegas. I don't think Jack Eichel has played it good enough so far. I think also Mark Stone needs to be a lot better for Vegas, as does goaltender Aiden Hill. I'm a little bit concerned with the way Vegas is playing because I felt like this was going to be a fairly easy series for them. I understand that Minnesota is a completely different team with Kaprizov, Eriksson, and Boldy all fully healthy, but they've gotten their doors blown off by Minnesota these last 2 games. So I want to see Vegas try to respond here.
Can I just say this? Something I don't think I have ever said about the National Hockey League, but I got to give them their due. This weekend, thank you, schedule makers, because Saturday, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 9:30, Sunday, 1 o'clock, 3:30, 6:30, 9:30. You can spend the full weekend just watching playoff hockey. There's not going to be that random day where all the games are done by 9 o'clock. From 1 o'clock until about midnight, you are going to have hockey to watch, and it's absolutely beautiful.
It's the best, man. And hey, Washington, Montreal, the Bell Center is going to be rocking this weekend. I think Montreal has played the Capitals really tough so far.
Oh, yeah.
The Habs have not been the better team in terms of the regulation for probably 4 of those 6 periods. I think the Habs have been the better team for 2 of those 6 periods. But they have thrown the kitchen sink at Logan Thompson in both of those third periods. I don't know what else the Habs could have done in game 2. Sometimes you get goalied. Logan Thompson was making high danger save after high danger save. He's been that good all season. Sometimes you got to tip your cap to the goalie, but the Bell Center is going to be rocking. Curious to see if the Habs can get back in this series because they're giving the Caps a fight, but they're just not able to overcome Thompson so far. Also, Carolina, New Jersey. New Jersey played really well in game 2. Frederik Andersen had almost a 4 goals saved above expected rate. He was very good in that game for Carolina. It looks like we're going towards a Carolina-Washington second-round series, which would be a lot of fun with how much those 2 teams and fan bases hate each other. But New Jersey, as of right now, they just don't have the horses to potentially come back. But hey, maybe something changes with them going back to their rink in Newark. But that will do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with another episode of you all on Monday, hopefully with Jesse Marshall for a Marshall Monday to discuss the offseason, the NHL draft, and so much more. And then we'll be back with all episodes on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week as well. So for Patrick Damp, I'm Hunter Hodes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday.